All right, so the idea here is that we're going to create a particle system. And when you create a particle system, you're basically going to attach it to an object. It could be an empty object, it could be a cube, it could be some game object that you're going to use. So as before, I will just create a simple 3D cube. Okay, and as we did with the audio, you know, when we attached it to a cube or sphere or whatever, same thing here. We're just going to attach the particle system to that. So I'm going to click on Add Component, and then I'll start typing it up here, particle system. It's already typed in, but that's fine. So then what we want to look for is, as you'll see it in your components when it comes up, when you start typing in PART and so on, particle system should be what comes up as one of the options. So as you can see, it starts off right away. So there's a player, as you can see right here, and I can pause it and restart it, pause it, play it. But what I've noticed right now, it's not necessarily what it's supposed to look like. It's just a bunch of little squares, and it's pink, and it's not necessarily coming out in terms of what the color of the particles is supposed to be like. Well, if we test it out too, or if we look at it in the gameplay, when I click play, we'll notice same thing. It's coming out pink, right? In terms of the particles on there. So we need to change that. Obviously, by the way, in terms of using particle system, you could use it for like a trailing, think of it as like a trailing comet or something, or a spaceship, the smoke behind it, or fire behind it, or something, something like that you may want to use. Okay, so first of all, we need to fix that, right? So what I need to do is go to my particle system component section, right? So I'm going to go, in yours, you may see the particle system, the component that's been added to it, to this cube. It may be closed or it may be open. So you're going to click on that little triangle to open it up. Okay? So we need to look for, in this case, if it comes out pink like this, it may or may not come out yours on pink. I'm going to go down to where it says render. So notice these things are check off: emission, shape, and render. We're going to come back to those in a few minutes. But also, as you'll notice, there's other things that we may need to look at here in terms of start color, gravity, and so on, in terms of setting up the particle system. So anyway, so I'm going to go down to render. And the first thing I notice right here under render is that my material, there's no material applied to it, right? So where it says material, it says none, and then we need to change that. So I'm going to click on that little dot right there. So I could choose some of these type of materials. You could create your own material, and you could download materials, by the way, and apply those type of materials. So, but I'm going to go with the default particle, which is, should be the one that correctly works with this particle system. As you notice right away, when I've done that, now that's changed on it immediately. So if I press play, I could press play here to get a preview of it. As you can see now, it looks more like what the particle system, I imagine, should look like when it's playing. Now if I go to game view, you can see already a preview of what's going to look like. And again, this is the game view, is what the user of the game is going to see. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and rotate my cube here. Go to my scene. Just rotate it slightly. And then press play. And notice now, in terms of how I rotate it, that's where in terms of like where the particle will be shooting from. So you see in my play view, we can see it shooting down, right? So if I change the view here, notice we changed the view over here too. Now, if for some reason that I'm going to change this back to the way it was. So what I did is undo. And I'm going to go ahead and pause this for a second. So this is how it originally was set up, right? That the cube is set up this way and the particles are coming off to the side. Now, for whatever reason, if you don't want to rotate your cube or rotate your object, you can also rotate the way the particle system is set up. So if I go down to shape, as you can see on their position, I can change on the X rotation. Notice I can change it up or down. So in this case, I'll just change it up. So now my particles are coming up. So in my game view, as you can see, remember they were off to the side, but now it is shooting up. Also, in terms of the shape, I can change the angle, make it tighter or wider as it comes out. So as you see, we have all these particular options: the radius, the particle cone, the thickness. So we have several different things that you may want to look at. For instance, the start color, you might want to change it to a different color. So again, that's something that would be right at the beginning when you first open up your particle system. You can also change the rate of distance, which means basically over time it will create those particular particles in terms of the rate of distance. Let's see what else I think is important for you guys to understand here. So for the most part, actually, I think that that's pretty much it in terms of changing the particle system. In terms of what basically you just need to learn or be able to change in terms of your particle system on there. Let me see what else here. Another important thing is actually in terms of your duration. And you may want to tone it down because you may, even though we don't necessarily see it here, the lower the number and duration, that means less rendering it has to do. So it's less taxing on your system. So depending on how and where you set it up, then it becomes important in terms of that particular duration. And then also the start life, the start speed, start size. You may want to turn it down a little bit or increase it. It's up to you. Now the start rotation, that actually just matters in terms of depending on the shape that you're using. As you saw down at the bottom, we can change the material down at the bottom. So going back up here, also in terms of the maximum particles, we can reduce that, increase it. So it's up to you. And so basically, again, is more in terms you're just customizing it for whatever way that you're using in your project. So you can as I said, attach it to something and then animate that particular object, or just have it sitting there. And next time what we'll do is we'll do animation, and I'll attach a particle system to it, and then just kind of move it across the screen to simulate something that you may want to attach that particular component to. Okay? Any questions? Yeah. Right. So yeah. So you can, as he was just saying, that you can have the particle system on its own. And as he mentioned, we can go to the hierarchy, right mouse click, create particle system. Right. Yeah, you know what? And the easiest thing to do, by the way, is you can, as I showed you before, you can create an empty object. And that object, so watch, I'll get rid of this right here. That object, you don't see on your game. Okay, so if you want to, and you can still attach, if you want to, you can still attach a particle system to that. You see? But there's nothing there. Although it looks like there's nothing there. At least it's coming out. So depending on where you need this particle system, you can do something of this nature. And what's nice about this is that you can rename it whatever you want. So you can name it to be, volcano, smoke, or whatever, So whatever you want it to be, you can rename that empty game object, and you can have it so it's easier to access and easier to find. And that's really what you're sometimes looking for. Okay? All right. So that's about it.